Part 1. The Last Spark of Zenthia. The once abundant, thriving forests of Zenthia whispered stories of the past. It felt like laughter from children, and the happy songs of morning choirs echoed in that wind. But now even the breezes seem cold, and laughter must have gone from there into a very sad silence long ago. Scattered patches of withering flora scorched the land, while the gleaming rivers dimmed their lights, flickering like the last breaths of a dying star. And in the very center of all that decaying glory, its capital Celestia bled beneath the grand tower of Eld, glorious bastion of arching crystal and shimmering walls. It was here that the aging lord of Zenthia, Lord Malric, had his abode. Once a mighty warrior and sage ruler, he now stepped slow and leaned heavily on his ornate staff, his face chiseled with lines of worry and exhaustion. His eyes, once sharp as a hawk's, now dimmed, reflecting the fading glory of his planet. Lord Malric stood at his expansive viewing platform, staring onto the capital. Not just his people, but the signs of weariness pervaded his heart. For his land, once alive with traders from across the galaxy who filled the markets with harmonious buzz, was now nearly silent. Where once the air had been full of laughter and music, now it echoed only hushed conversations and hurried footsteps. People were preparing for the inevitable. "Father, the councils have gathered and await your guidance." The voice came from behind him, soft but resolute. It was Princess Althea, his only daughter, dressed in a gown of starlight silver. Her eyes, a mirror to her father's, were filled with both determination and fear. Lord Malric turned, managing a tired smile for his daughter. "The weight of the crown was never meant for one so young," he murmured, walking with her into the council chamber. The doors creaked open to reveal a semicircle of Zenthia's wisest and most powerful leaders. Their faces, marked with concern, carried the burden of a world on the brink. The council session was grim. News from the fringe was bleak. The enemy, a brutal force known as the Krell Dominion, had fortified their positions further, severing critical energy conduits that powered most of Zenthia. Each passing day showed the planet's reserves growing leaner. With external attack looming and internal collapse creeping closer, the discussions grew heated. Voices rose, strident and desperate, each pushing their solution with the weight of fear behind them. Amid the tension, Althea rose from her chair. "We cannot wait for the Krell to make their next move," she said with calm force. "We must seek allies, and we must do it now." "But who would help us, Princess?" General Rowan asked, skepticism clear in his voice. "The galaxy sees us as a fading relic, not worth the risk." "I will go," she declared, unshaken. "I will go to Earth. They possess advanced technologies and a formidable space force. If we show them the gravity of our situation, perhaps they will find merit in aiding us." Whispers filled the chamber. The notion of sending the heir to the throne on such a dangerous mission was met with alarm. But the look in Althea's eyes, a fire beneath the fear, said more than words. She knew this was their last hope, and so did her father. "Prepare the Star Wing," Lord Malric said, silencing the council. The Star Wing was Zenthia's fastest ship. If there was to be any chance of convincing Earth, it would begin with Althea. As the council disbanded, she turned to the window. Beyond it, the stars stretched infinitely before her. Her mission was set, her path full of danger and uncertainty. But a flame had kindled within her, a refusal to let Zenthia fall without a fight. She carried the weight of her world, and she was not about to let it fall into darkness. Not yet. Chapter 2. To the Stars. The air in the great chamber of the High Council was heavy with unease. Once aglow with the light from Zenthia's twin suns, the crystal walls now seemed to reflect only the downtrodden expressions of its occupants. Beneath the sprawling branches of the whispering tree, a sacred emblem of their ancient wisdom, stood Lord Malric. His figure was bent not just with age, but with the weight of what was to come. "The hour is late and our options few," he spoke. The echo of his voice diminished from what it had once been. The council members, clad in their ceremonial robes, shifted uneasily. His eyes passed over each face, searching for conviction. "Then let it be so," he said, decision solid in his tone as he turned to Althea. "Princess Althea shall go to Earth. She shall be our ambassador, our voice with those who live under a different sun. The name Earth stirred murmurs through the chamber. To most, Earth was distant, unknown, its people alien and largely untested in alliance. Althea stood beside her father, her heart a blend of honor and dread. The task ahead was daunting. Her azure eyes met her father's, a silent pact passing between them. Father, I will carry our plea to the stars. At dawn, preparations began. The Royal Astral Port, shaped like a blooming starflower, bustled with engineers and officials. The Star Wing shimmered under the morning light, its hull catching the pale golden rays like a shard of hope. As Althea walked toward the vessel, her ceremonial cloak trailed behind her. Crowds had gathered. The citizens of Zenthia, young and old, came to see her off. Pride and worry mingled on their faces. Children whispered her name, evoking old tales of the starborn, heroes who would rise when the world faced its greatest need. She was led to her quarters aboard the Star Wing. It was a small chamber, simple, with windows that offered a glimpse into the cosmos. The walls were draped with glowing lumina fabric, casting a soft hue across the room. Here, in silence, she would spend days slipping through space, a lone envoy from a fading world. She stared out at the stars, each a distant fire with stories of their own. Her thoughts often returned to her father, once so strong, now weary and burdened. She thought of the council, their doubt, their fears, and she thought of Earth. The Earth, now a shimmering blue orb in her view, stirred awe and anxiety. It was alive, vibrant, so unlike Zenthia, yet it was unaware of the peril in the galaxy beyond. Would they receive her as a curiosity, a threat, or as a herald of a dying world pleading for salvation? The Star Wing, sleek and silent, pierced Earth's atmosphere with ease. Yet within Althea, a storm raged. The ship set down in an isolated field, far from the cities and satellites of man. She steadied herself. The hatch hissed, releasing a breath of air rich with moisture and unfamiliar scents. Stepping onto alien soil, Althea felt Earth's gravity pull at her body and at her soul. This was where her mission would begin, or where her world would end. Her journey was only beginning, and the greatest challenge of her life was just beyond the horizon. Chapter 3. Between Worlds. The descent had rattled the Star Wing, its diplomatic frame more designed for elegance than turbulence. Althea braced herself, fingers curled around the seat's edges as Earth's blue and green swirl loomed larger in the viewport. Her heart pounded, not from fear of impact, but from the unknown waiting below. Earth was beautiful, the same way Zenthia once had been, vibrant, wild, breathing. But its beauty did not quiet the weight in her chest. She was not arriving as a guest. She came as a beggar cloaked in royalty, as a warning in flesh. When the hatch opened, cool air rushed in. Different. Rich with the scent of growing things, damp soil, wild wind. Zenthia's air had once smelled like that too. She stepped onto the tarmac of an isolated airfield, flanked by no crowds, no banners, just silence and concrete. A trio of humans approached. They wore military uniforms, and their expressions were unreadable. The one in the center, a woman with silver streaks in her dark hair, stepped forward. She introduced herself as General Evelyn Carter. Althea gave a slight nod, accepting the presence of armed guards and escort vehicles without comment. This was diplomacy at its most guarded. The drive into the heart of the facility was long and silent. The scenery shifted from open plains to towering glass and steel structures. Cities, Althea thought. Monuments of concrete and light, cold and perfect. They lacked the soul of Zenthian cities where architecture grew in tandem with living things, but they had their own kind of beauty, stubborn, practical, defiant. The facility where she was taken was utilitarian and unwelcoming, a building shaped for war, not peace. Inside, she was ushered into a windowless room, its walls bare, its lighting harsh. A table waited in the center, long and narrow. Althea was directed to the seat at the head, an honor perhaps, or a way to keep her isolated. Earth's representatives filed in, military officers, diplomats, scientists. Some wore curiosity like a badge, others suspicion like armor. Among them was a man she did not yet notice, though his eyes lingered on her longer than most. Martin Hale, junior officer in Earth's Space Division, had not expected to be there. His role usually involved satellite data and orbital logistics, not first contact. But he had read the reports. He had seen her image. Something in her story had pulled at a quiet place within him. He found a way into the meeting. Althea rose to speak when it was her turn. Her translator shimmered softly at her shoulder, converting her words across dozens of Earth languages. Esteemed leaders of Earth, I come to you not just as a princess, but as a voice for my people. Xanthia is dying, not from natural decline, but from the encroachment of an enemy bent on conquest. The Krell Dominion has severed our energy supply, and their fleets gather beyond our border. We will not survive another cycle without aid. Her voice was clear, calm, musical, but resolute. The room held its breath. We offer more than pleas. We bring knowledge, technology, and the potential for unity beyond your world. In aiding us, you gain more than allies. You gain access to the stars. Silence followed, a weighty, calculated silence. Some faces softened with interest. Others remained locked in their neutrality. Martin watched her, not with analysis, but with empathy. She reminded him of something, maybe of himself, when he believed things still mattered. The discussion resumed. Questions were asked, probes about technology, politics, risk. Althea answered each with patience and precision, never showing how exhausted she felt. She had not slept well in days. Her heart was heavy, but her voice remained strong. As the diplomats began to hint at delays and more deliberations, Martin found himself on his feet. He spoke without clearance, without a plan. Consider the implications of turning her away, he said, and the room quieted. Xanthia offers more than a distant sob story. If even half of what she says is true, they are a civilization worth knowing. They have starflight, energy systems we don't understand, and a perspective we cannot gain on our own. By helping them, we gain more than strategic value. We gain a place in something bigger than this planet. Heads turned toward him. He felt sweat gather at his collar, but pressed on. More than that, we have a responsibility. We always talk about being ready for first contact, for being part of the galaxy. Well, here it is. Not lasers and aliens with tentacles, just a young woman asking for help before her people vanish. Althea's gaze met his. There was gratitude there and surprise. When the meeting ended, the officials recessed, murmuring among themselves. Martin approached her as the room emptied. She turned, her posture relaxing just slightly. Thank you, she said quietly. Martin. That's my name. Althea. She offered her hand. The gesture was awkward. Her world had different customs, but sincere. You have a vision that stretches farther than many of your leaders, she told him. He didn't know what to say to that, so he smiled. And for the first time since arriving, she smiled back. That night she slept more soundly, knowing at least one person on this strange world had heard her. Chapter 4. Signs of Change. The days that followed were full of waiting. Committees met, reports circulated, analysts dissected every word from her speech. Earth's leaders were cautious, deliberate, sometimes maddeningly slow. But the tide was shifting. Martin's words had reached ears that mattered. Quiet discussions turned into louder ones. Questions of logistics followed the doubts. Althea remained in the diplomatic housing wing, still guarded, but with more freedom. Martin visited often, officially to ask about Xanthian systems, unofficially because she was the most interesting person he had ever met. They sat often in the small atrium, a dome of glass that showed Earth's stars, foreign but bright. Tell me what your world was like before, Martin asked once. It was like Earth in some ways, Althea replied. Beautiful, loud with life. But our buildings grew with trees. Our rivers sang through our cities. We didn't tame the world. We learned to grow beside it. Martin tried to imagine it. He had grown up in urban sprawls, asphalt and sound. He wondered what kind of place would choose harmony over control. And your enemy? What drives them? Conquest, she said, but not chaos. They believe the universe must be ordered. efficient, all planets united under one rule. That doesn't sound evil, Martin said. It sounds logical, Althea agreed. That's what makes them dangerous. One night, as another round of debates unfolded, General Carter found Martin outside the observation deck. You put your reputation on the line, she said. He nodded. I know. The thing is, she added, you may have moved the needle more than anyone else. You gave them something to believe in. He thought about that, and about Althea, and the look in her eyes when she spoke of her home. A week later, the council voted. Earth would send an exploratory team to Xanthia. Aid would be conditional, incremental, but real. When Althea received the news, she sat in silence for a moment, letting it settle over her. Then she looked at Martin. One step forward, she said. And we'll take the next one together, he replied. The stars overhead did not feel so distant now. Chapter 5. Dawn over Xanthia. The decision had been made. Earth's exploratory envoy would accompany Althea back to Xanthia. It was not a full alliance, not yet, but it was movement. Proof that her voice had not been lost in the bureaucratic storm of a foreign world. The Starwing was readied once again, its hull cleaned and its engines prepped for the return voyage. Martin stood on the launch deck with a small team, scientists, tactical observers, and one quiet engineer who volunteered just to see the stars up close. Althea walked among them, now less an outsider and more a guide into a greater galaxy. Martin stepped beside her. You sure you want to go back? She tilted her head, her voice steady. I never wanted to leave. I only wanted to return with hope. General Carter, overseeing the mission from a distance, gave them a firm nod as the crew boarded. It was the first time in history that an interstellar alliance had taken even a single breath. No parades, no applause, just a ship lifting quietly into the sky, carrying with it the fragile threads of trust. The voyage home was quiet. Althea spent hours watching the stars, occasionally explaining constellations from Xanthian mythology to Martin, who logged them with curiosity. The two talked more now, not always of war or diplomacy, sometimes of music, of favorite stories, of how cold space could feel, and how rare it was to find someone who made it warmer. Xanthia came into view like a wounded jewel, its once vibrant colors dulled, but not extinguished. As the Starwing descended, Martin could see what the Krell had done. Fields burned in patterns of war, rivers rerouted or dried entirely, cities powered down, shadows of themselves. In the capital, Lord Malric waited. His figure had grown thinner, his eyes more distant. But when he saw the Starwing land and saw his daughter step forth with companions at her back, a light returned to those tired eyes. You have returned, he said, and you have brought the dawn. Martin was introduced with care. The Earth team moved cautiously, but with respect. Althea guided them through the halls of Eld Tower, past archives of knowledge older than Martin's entire civilization. Some of Earth's representatives were overwhelmed. Others were skeptical still. But every one of them knew they were seeing something beyond human reach. In private, Lord Malric spoke with Martin. You are the one who gave my daughter's words weight. I am grateful. Martin shifted, unsure of how to receive the praise. She spoke for herself, sir. I just made sure someone listened. That is often more powerful than speeches, the old ruler said. The Earth team quickly got to work assessing Xanthia's situation. Engineers examined power systems, medical officers met with local healers, and defense analysts toured outer installations. It became clear how close Xanthia had come to collapse, and how urgent the aid was. The Krell were not blind. Their scouts had noticed activity near the border. A confrontation was coming. Althea stood before the council once again, Martin at her side this time. Earth is not here to fight for us, not yet. But they are here, and that alone changes everything. Let us not waste their trust. Lord Malric nodded. The Starborn returns bearing fire. Within days, the people of Xanthia saw change. Light returned to parts of the city. Medical supplies flowed into hospitals. Communication systems were reactivated. The people looked up at the sky with something they had not felt in years. Expectation. Martin and Althea walked together through the restored sections of the capital. Children pointed, elders bowed. She moved with grace, but also with a new kind of purpose. One born not just of legacy, but of chosen responsibility. You've done something impossible, Martin told her. So did you, she replied. They stood beneath the whispering tree one night, the same tree where Lord Malrique had announced her mission. Now its branches glowed gently again, powered by a restored energy conduit. What happens now? Martin asked. We rebuild, she said, and we prepare. The Krell will not stop simply because we found a friend, but now they know we are not alone. And Earth, they will decide for themselves what kind of place they want to have in the stars. Martin looked out over the city, lights flickering on in distant towers. I think they're going to choose to stand with you, she smiled softly. Then I will stand with them too. Epilogue. The first link months passed. Earth's presence on Zenthia became formalized. A small embassy opened in Celestia. Joint research projects began. Energy, medicine, exploration. The Krell remained distant, but watched. Their movements slowed, uncertain of how deeply Earth would commit. In orbit above Zenthia, construction began on a new station. A joint venture. A symbol. Althea and Martin were both named co-liaisons. She as the daughter of Zenthia's ruler, now acting in full regency. He as Earth's envoy, promoted beyond his previous post. They spent more time together, and not always in strategy sessions. The stars were the same, but everything else had changed. Zenthia lived, and Earth had taken its first step beyond isolation. In Althea's chambers, beside a desk scattered with plans and star maps, she placed a small carving, a gift from a child in the capital. It was a star flower, like those that once bloomed in the royal gardens. Beneath it, etched in old Zenthian script, was a phrase that needed no translator. Even in silence, hope grows. Martin read it aloud, then looked at her. So what do we name this new chapter? She leaned closer. Let's call it a beginning.